Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to this Voice of
Salam wa
Islam.
rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Yes, absolutely. That's it. On to the salams, brothers. Do yourself a favor and all of us as well. Alhamdulillah. Voice of Islam platform. And we're going to be talking today with some really interesting guests about the issue of living off the land. Food sustainability is the real sort of coup de grace, the issue that we need to be just talking about today in the world. Because much of the world is living in total dire poverty with no access to food, no access to clean drinking water. Farming is become very mechanical, it's become very industrial, but is it providing for the masses of human beings, or is it just the people in the West that can pop down to the local supermarket and buy exactly what they want? You know, the tomatoes and the fruit and the vegetables are all measured, and they have to be a certain color, a certain texture, a certain taste. You know, we've mass produced something, you know, for one small part of mankind. In fact, if you go to Morocco, if you go to these developing lands where they're very fertile, they're sending their best fruit, their best products out to London, out to France, out to so on and so forth. Same thing in America. And they're leaving themselves with second-rate products. It's really quite strange. The world is a very strange place when it comes to food and farming. Well, we've got a farmer in the house, Abdul Jabbar, originally, of course, an Indonesian chap, or he basically says he's from Borneo, and he denies all knowledge of being anything like Malaysian. Okay. Assalamu alaikum, Reza.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my brother.
How are you today?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, very well, my brother.
But you're in Queenstown. You're in Queenstown today, so you're not near your farms, right?
No, we about 2 hours, 2.5 hours away. There about, yeah.
Good.
Alhamdulillah.
South Island in the mountains. And also, of course, Tomo. We've got Tomo, Mohammed Thompson, the head honcho of Voice of Islam, one of the guys who studied Voice of Islam in New Zealand. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And also, all the way, a Mancunian by all accounts, Farid Khan, Professor or Dr. Farid Khan, who is a person who loves biotech, he loves innovation, he loves science. He's actually touted to be one of the top scientists, although he wouldn't actually like to admit it because he's too humble in the UK. And he's set up a thing called Biospace, which allows small organizations that have got great biotech, fintech, medtech ideas to come there and develop the product all the way and take it to market. So he's got something called Biospace there in the Manchester Science Park. And I've been working with him for a while on a few products and, you know, different projects. But Muslims, of course, are well behind when it comes to these areas. Unfortunately, they don't realize the significance. We're going to be talking today about food sustainability. And Dr. Farid Khan, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you very much.
And of course, Dr. Farid, or Farid, as you prefer to be known, you've been working on a lot of really interesting products or projects in Mexico, in Malaysia, in Borneo, in the UK, to develop sustainable resources for mankind to be able to feed itself long into the future, haven't you? Do you want to talk about a few of those?
Yes. I think what we've got to look at is take a step back. What is it that we've been doing over the last 50, 60 years? And how is it that we are actually growing crops these days? And a lot of crops that are grown use chemicals. They use chemical fertilizers, chemical pesticides, and only to improve or increase the yields. And not only that, these chemicals actually do permeate into the plants themselves and enter us as human beings. These are chemicals that can damage us. Glyphosate is one example. So the large corporate companies who make billions upon billions every year, almost like addicts, they give these chemicals to to farmers so that they can increase the yields and ultimately sell these crops. So I've been thinking about this. Not only does it pollute the body and the soils, it also pollutes the waterways as well. So there is there's an added effect. So what is it that I've been working on? Well, you know what? Nature has solutions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives solutions to all of these problems. And one of the things which I've been working on is a natural, what we call biostimulant. These biostimulants are actually like plant hormones. These accelerate growth naturally. You can get these plant hormones or these biostimulants from other organisms, and other organisms include a special organism called algae, or in the US they call it algae. Now, algae itself is a type of plant in a strange way. Actually, it's the other way around. Plants are a type of algae, and the largest amounts of plants, if you like, are in the oceans. They're not even on land. The whole variety is completely different. So, so using these algae, we were able to extract compounds from them and spray them, and only a small amount, spray them on a crop. And all of a sudden you can see that they sprout much more efficiently. They increase the yield of fruits. They increase, they even in some formulations can stop the growth of plants and concentrate more on the fruiting bodies. So you have higher quality of crops. So this is something that we'll talk about. But essentially, this is a kind of new innovation that's hitting farmers now, and it's organic. It's purely organic, because these algae are natural. We don't modify them or anything else. But we hunt for the right ones. We find the exact right ones all over the world, including New Zealand, and then we extract these. And because they can be grown, all you need for a microbe like algae is some water and a small bit of feeding. And you can grow, tons and tons of this material. So this is the kind of sustainability angle. And also, could you imagine if you increase a crop by 30%, which is what we will find, and I'll talk more about this project. It's an international project between the UK government, Mexican government, to produce the next generation of technology which doesn't pollute the lab, but uses nature with nature. So
Alhamdulillah, Jazakallah khair, Dr. Farid. I mean, Reza is actually a cattle farmer as well. Mostly he's there with cattle, and he's experimenting with the other things as well. But so mostly his speciality is with animal livestock, with cows, I understand. So Reza, do you find that interesting what Dr. Farid is talking about in terms of food sustainability, and how easy it is to feed the world if you just all had this focus on creating cheap and yet rigorously organic, reproducible, sustainable food stocks?
Yes, yeah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salam ala Rasulillah. My brother, I agree what Dr. Farid is saying, that yes, I mean, there are many methods that we can employ towards our production system. We in New Zealand already ahead of the game to a certain extent. Like, for example, that seaweeds, the algae, we've got forms of fertilizer that we call the humate, which is exactly that, which we use that to feed the top layers of the soil, of the topsoil really, that we grow the grass and increases our grass production system. See, that actually helps us in getting the required nutrients into our grass pastoral systems and produce lots of grass for our cows. Maybe it's not fully 100% organic yet, but if we can reduce the inputs of those fertilizer and really reduce and participate in the reduction of the leaching of the nutrients, which is Dr. Farid is saying that it gets, not only it permeates to the plants itself, but it leaches into the waterways. Of course, this is something that we don't benefit. We don't benefit as farmers because we have paid for something that is wasteful. Islamically, this is not what we want to achieve. As a farmer, this is not great. As a human being in humanity, we are losing the habitat and losing the waterways and the species of the fishes and the flora and the faunas that surround us. So those things are already there. Those things are already there. To a lesser extent, of course, I mean, lots more needs to be done, of course.
Mohammed Thompson, you know, in terms of the prophetic way, the prophets, of course, upon them be peace, were shepherds. They were close to the land. They were outdoor people. It's something which Muslims have tended to lose sight of, right? They've lost sight of it. I know you love your outdoor living and so on and so forth. And so what can we do to bring our young, you know, up and coming people to expect or to get more engaged with the land and more engaged with farming and animal livestock and so on and so forth?
Yeah, it's in New Zealand. New Zealanders have got a long history of being outdoor people because everything on their back door is is so nice and things like that. So, but even with that, the waterways are getting more polluted, and there's a more awareness on it, and governments now got programs to try and clean up the waterways so that people can get back to what they used to do in the summer and go swimming in the rivers and things like that, like they used to do. But talking about the algae and the seaweed, like I used to do scuba diving when I was much younger, and like used to see so much of it under the water, and and just washing up, and then I remember we used to use it years ago as a just additive to help things grow much quicker. And I think these are good things to do, to work on those sort of things to enhance more the organic way, the more natural way, because the other thing that some of these big organizations are doing is they're controlling the seed. So which means that nothing will ever reproduce itself. I remember years ago living in New Zealand, we used to, I was living out in the sticks, and used to have some leftover, bits of pumpkin and pips, and I just threw them out, and then a month or so later, all of a sudden pumpkins are growing. I just threw the scraps out, and that's how things used to be. And I think nowadays with the way things are, that these big multinational companies are controlling, as I said, the seed. So every time it keeps these farmers poor, because what you used to do is grow a certain amount, crop it, and then use some for seeding. Well, it doesn't seed anymore. You have the seedless grapes, the seedless watermelons and things like that. We tend to think as eaters of those things, oh, great, no seeds. But that's a problem. It means later on, you can't regrow stuff unless you've got to buy them all again.
Yeah, that's interesting. We've got a couple of comments coming in on Facebook. Z says, totally agree. Fresh produce isn't fresh anymore due to how much chemicals used in corporate farming. And Diana Thaib, of course, one of our regulars, our health starts from healthy soil, clean water and air. Bayer Monsanto paid billions of dollars in US lawsuits as it was using pesticides, which are causing cancers in the US. There's lawsuits going through. Dr. Farid, how bad is it? How bad is the situation in terms of food production in the world?
I think back to the question on chemicals. I think this is a very, very important point. So glyphosate was used quite a lot on crops. Now, the structure of glyphosate itself, it looks like a small amino acid, glycine. It's some work that I did in my PhD back in Cambridge. The idea is that this small molecule actually incorporates itself inside the plant, and it is cancer causing. And the other thing that it does, glyphosate, what I found, especially with bacteria, is that it inhibits a pathway called the shikimate pathway, and it kills a whole range of bacteria. Now, just like in your gut, you've got millions of bacteria that allows you to digest. The soil itself is a complex network. Now you disrupt and start killing all these bacteria, you start killing a lot of the ability for plants to get nutrients. And indeed, a plant is not just one creature, just like we aren't one creature, because we have millions of other organisms in our stomach, for example, that allows us to digest. You destroying the earth, and once you start destroying the earth, you also destroy yourself, because inherently you were eating those compounds as well. So I think back to the question, really about sustainability. It's not only the food that we grow, but also the types of food that the human being needs. And this is a very important point that a lot of people are now beginning to understand, because Dr. Reza made a good, interesting point, and he included fish. Now, what we're trying to do here is, what is it that the human body needs? Now, there are three components what a human needs. One, proteins. Two, it needs carbohydrates. And there's make. That is and has to. The three self is for the human, and for to find, in other words, it makes us human. It allows us brain connections. So my point being,
can you just repeat the 3 points, because you actually cut out quite severely? Point number one.
So point number one is that human beings need proteins. Point number two needs carbohydrates, and point number three, it requires essential oils. And the most important one in particular is the oils, and in particular omega-3. Now, omega-3 makes you human because it goes to your brain and makes it healthy and repairs. It's what allows it. So some plants produce omega-3, very, very few amounts. But the other problem that we're having in the world is that there's lack of fish now because of pollution, because of overfishing. So what we're using is this creature, again, algae. Now all fish, the oily fish, gets their omega-3 by eating algae. So we go to the source, we go to the primary producers, which is algae, grow that in huge amounts, and guess what we do? We extract the omega-3. That's vegan, by the way. That omega-3 is vegan. We make the oil, and secondly, the waste is an amazing biostimulant, not a fertilizer, a biostimulant, which is different. You only need small amounts of that. And if I had time, I'd go through a presentation to show you the amazing effects on crops. And so, I think these new technologies, or which are out there anyway, to incorporate this into the food chain is an important step, because WHO made a statement. They said any technology that increases the yield by 20% would feed the whole of the world. And taking away from distribution. So we need to not only sit on our laurels and blame these companies, but make this technology available. Because what I want to do is send each farmer a little packet, which is the seed of the algae, and grow it in your backyard. Grow it, spray it, use it. So that's something that we want to do.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Farid. So Reza, I mean, why are Muslims not more engaged in this whole topic? I mean, surely to feed a person is one of the best sadaqahs, right? To feed. The Prophet ﷺ said that what's the best form of sadaqah? Feeding people and spreading salam to the people you don't know and the people you do know. I mean, why is it that Muslims are not more engaged in, rather than just giving hundreds of millions of pounds in sadaqah, which is a good thing, to charities, they create all of these small farmers, they give them the technology, they tell them how to use it, and they send them out and say, now feed your people and make wealth out of it. What's wrong? What's gone wrong?
I think the way we perceive things, I think when you say, I mean, there's plenty of PhDs in this forum, but remember we had the discussion that we have to redefine the PhD into the people that help Dean, right? I learned it from my brother from the UK somewhere there, and I think it's drinking a cup of coffee or something at the moment, right? So really, that is what's wrong, because once you understand that, we know when we talk about farming, we should be very much at the coal face of it. When the Prophet, peace and blessing of Allah be upon him, said, "Ma min nabiyyin ila ra'al ghanam," that there is not a single Nabi, not a single messenger, except that there were shepherds, farmers, right? And this is a big statement. So when you put that statement and you compound that with other hadiths that says, قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من دال على خير فله مثل أجري فعليه, whomsoever instigate, contribute into something good, that you have the rewards of the like of it, without taking the rewards from the person doing it. Dr. Farid has compounded that message by saying, look, we can look after the environment whilst at the same time pump up that production. We're up to 10%, 15%. I see that, right? As a Muslim, for and foremost, and then as a farmer, as a father, that we have generations to come. So we need to have the eyes that, hey, I need to employ that methods of productive farming, environmentally sustainable, right? Create that, show it to them, showcase it. And that's what we do this for, because I think, for myself and my wife and my families, we are looking for that great rewards. You talk about the charity, you talk about the charity that keeps on giving. So therefore now, this is my way of keeps on giving, my brother. Because if we can implement this, employ this method, and showcase a farm, a commercially viable farm can be achieved. Or you could have a farm commercially viable at the very same time environmentally sustainable. Once you've got that in your mind, I think you'll do everything that you can. And this is not to mention that this will also help the bottom line. The dollar that we generate from this place will also increase, because we are now having a systems that rely a lot less on those inputs, and we are, Dr. Farid, I just want to touch base with you. You see all this farmland that you see on the slides at the moment, or in this tube. Certainly we feed this grass, we feed them with algae, with humate, and the topsoil of it. So, and it's a big job trying to feed 1,000 hectares or 2,500 acres, right? But whatever reduction we see from the waste of the cows, from the effluent, the manures that we collect in the process of milking, we put it back on. You see that last picture there where you got the sprinkler. And we do this in combination with the testing that we do. So we test our soil system all the time, and we reflect on the length, on the evapotranspiration rate of any given days. So therefore we know how much water that is with the effluent that we can put back into the ground without that leaching, so that can be absorbed. And this alone, we estimate in our system would have represent, and this is a true figure, anywhere between 150 to maybe $200,000 in saving in a year. Such a great saving. So here we go. We are making this an act of charity. We are making this an act where we are teaching others how to farm. In the process, getting the rewards from Allah, Rabbul Alameen. The second point, we are also being helped by generating better bottom line. So we can't lose. So this is the lesson. Is a lot of farmers, they're very scared about this because they think they will lose. But in reality, we will win and win and win, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair.
Oh, yeah.
And I just put that footage of Reza there, and you're talking a lot more about sustainability, the waterways, being polluted. You're one of the leading guys out there in the farming industry. This is what Muslims need to be. They need to be at the forefront, That's why I brought you together with Dr. Farid Khan, because he's one of the guys at the forefront of food sustainability technology provision worldwide. And of course, he's highly respected in the UK and in Malaysia. I know you don't like Malaysia, but never mind about that. So anyway, Dr. Farid, what's your thoughts on this? And how can you work together with Reza to improve his technology and his farming as well?
I think, mashallah, I mean, Reza, Brother Reza, I think, you know, you're a very practical person, and this is a beautiful thing, you know. The fact that you're already thinking, you know about soil health, you know about humus that you use, so all the things that you're implementing, also conservation of water. So, you know, I think the mindset's there already. I mean, one thing that we'd like to do, perhaps, I mean, I'm working on a project for the last 3 or 4 years. Is we have all of this powder, if you like. You just add it to water, and it's a concentrate from microalgae that allows certain even silage-based plants that you can use to feed your animals. So it's optimization in that, but also to give it much more high nutrient content as well. So this is something that, you know, we can talk about and indeed send you some of our results. I mean, for instance, a lot of crops that we eat now originate from Mexico. So this was a project called NABAMA. Now, it sounds like a dance, but it actually stands for Novel Microbiological Actives from Microalgae. And this was a UK government and a Mexican government project funded, you know, by the two governments, millions of dollars. There's, you know, against this idea of just using chemicals. Some of the formulations are also kill pests as well, you know, so it's it's like a pesticidal. So I think what we can do is you know, send you some of the material, you know. We you know, we've tested these in not only in laboratory conditions, but we've gone beyond that. We've done it in the field. We know the workings of these things. But you know, there's a link between what we eat out on agriculture and also the oceans. You know, there's a link between these things as well. And also the microbes, which makes us healthy in our guts, but similarly for plants. Plants are very interesting because they have different ways to communicate. You know, if you go under a tree, like an elm tree or an oak tree, nothing grows underneath it. You'll notice it's not because it's dark, it's because they are producing a chemical that inhibits the growth of seeds. And this thing is called allelopathy. So they are talking between themselves. They are battling a battle that we don't even see. They are sending signals to one plant will send a signal saying it's being attacked by bees. That signal goes in the air, picked up by its neighbors, and they will start producing a chemical against that that organism, so that they're prepared. There's a lot of communications that we do not see, but we can amplify so that we can actually allow us to create a better crop in some ways and optimize these things and use nature with nature rather than against using a chemical based methods. And I think that's the link. I think this is where brothers have the great intentions to do things, and we can introduce a technology. And you know what? You can sell this as well. You know, you can make, we're making microalgae plants, which is a big glass house, more or less. And once you make the product, you can sell the product. So not only are you selling it and utilizing it for your own growth, it's a technology that you can put into the market as well. So like you say, it's always a win-win. You're not losing anything.
No,
So that's
right.
exactly.
We've got an issue before Reza comes back, because I know he's burning to come back on that. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I want to ask Dr. Farid Khan, can you please make these technologies public, showing it practically on YouTube, for example? Is it possible? We've had some other comments. Can I start doing some of this stuff in my back garden? Is that a silly suggestion, or is it a good suggestion?
No, absolutely. We can. I mean, we've finished the project now. We're going into a phase. It's called the commercialization phase. And so because it's been publicly funded, we will be releasing all of this data. So happy to disseminate that, inshallah. I mean, we're looking into journals as well to publish some of this material. But the thing is that we're not here to profit from it, in that way. It's a formulation. It's there for humanity. In some ways, we can't hold things back because it's wrong, morally wrong for us to do that. But we should apply it. Once you have knowledge, knowledge is not for knowledge's sake; it's for application's sake. So this is something that we should disseminate as soon as we know. So this is something, of course, with the two brothers already, we will engage and we will do this without doubt, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. I mean, Mohammed Thompson, again, very interesting topic. I think you might agree. Reza, you would definitely be agreeing on that. And you know that this is the whole point of this forum, is for us to bring like-minded thinking, practical applications to make humanity a better place. That's what Dr. Farid's all about. I know that's what you're about, Reza. Certainly, Voice of Islam is all about that. So this is one of the benefits of having this Zoom. Actually, this international Zoom phenomena has taken off. Not as many people today online. Brothers and sisters, if you're watching and you've gone into malaise after Ramadan, you've forgotten your deen, you've forgotten what you've lost focus because it's been after 1 month and Shawwal, you've done your 6 days, and then you thought, well, I'll just wait until Ramadan next year, brothers and sisters, isn't it? That's it. Not good enough. Not good enough. Share the video, make it go viral. You will get rewarded for all of this ilm al-nafiya, this knowledge which is extremely beneficial to feed human beings, to make sure the food that we're eating is sustainable and good and healthy, tayyib, halal. Last night we were talking about what is halal, Reza. A lot of people just think, well, halal is just Bismillah, and bring the knife. That's it. That's halal. What is it? I mean, let's explain. Let's just go back to the basics. What is halal?
Well, yeah. What is halal, right? I mean, we know, one of the, in Surah Al-Imran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, ya ayyuhan nas." It's interesting that this surah actually start with ayyuhan nas. Ya ayyuhan nas kullu mimma fil ardi halalan tayyiban. Eat of this earth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, what is halal, permissible, that has been made lawful unto you. Whichever way you want to translate that, whether it's permissible or permissible or lawful. But the beautiful thing about this ayat is that it goes with, halal lan tayyiban, permissible, lawful, and pure. Pure, what does pure mean? It is clean, it is nutritious, that gives you the right energy so you can worship Allah. It is the food that whenever you eat them, it will be of benefit. Interesting, my brother. You spoke about ilm al-nafiya, but that is of the beneficial knowledge. See, when Islam, my brothers, my sisters, when in Islam, when we talk of knowledge, we don't just glory, bask in that knowledge itself. We want a knowledge that actually increase us in its knowledge itself, in benefit, one that actually adds values to others' life. Not simply one that, hey, we spoke about, I've got this master's, this PhD, but what is the contribution of that PhD, of that master's, of that degrees? But this ayah, I find it even more amazing because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhan nas, meaning this is a universal value. You don't need to be a Muslim to understand that you need to eat something that is lawful, permissible, by whom? By the standards of the Almighty. And if it is lawful and permissible, and also it's pure, it is nutritious, it is one that will give you the right energy. I think, can you imagine the power of the food? Can you imagine the result of eating that food, my brother? I guess that's the point that we need to look at. And as Muslims, we should be the example of it.
Yeah,
we should be at the coal face, at the forefront. And I think, you know, like, I mean, I want, you know, see that a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago, we had a problem called the Argentine stem weevil. Brother Dr. Farid would probably understand that. See, we didn't resort in employing the spray technicians into that, or the spray helicopters didn't get pulled in. What we did, we actually released, I
think your video's gone, but you will still hear your voice.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear your voice, no problem.
Yeah. But we actually released 200 wasps onto the fields, onto the farms. So this wasp, you know, by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it went around and neutralized that Argentine stem weevil. So we managed, you know, by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we managed to eradicate Argentine stem weevil without a single spray. So there are plenty of methods that we can employ, really, you know, in this day and age, so long as we are open-minded and really willing to learn and put through the systems that we believe will help us in producing the best food that is halal and tayyib, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Reza, mashallah. We got Grace. Grace is saying, Assalamu alaikum, great topic. Thank you for sharing the knowledge. Why not put up a great campaign to go back to natural farming, and hence even not yet Muslims will know how Islam is all about, and caring for all, inshallah. Watching from the UAE. The person's watching the UAE. So that's a great comment as well. And I agree. What do you think about that comment, Dr. Farid?
Yes, the comment's great. I mean, the UAE is an interesting place in itself, because the problems that they have is the water, and you know, the solutions they're looking for is vertical farming. But again, I think with respect to what we're speaking about, I think there's a lot of cooperation that requires inter-country cooperation. It's interesting, we're talking about New Zealand. New Zealand is one of the most diverse places on earth as well. You know, we have a duty of care, I mean, to look after other organisms that we need to come back to. Now, I'll give you an example. I mean, we went and explored thousands and thousands of microalgae, and we found one or two of them actually in Norway, which we can grow very fast for some strange reason. And they're natural strains. So, you know, the answers to our problems is out there, just like that wasp the brother just described, Reza. And so, you know, we have to take care of those things. We don't just talk about monocultures, that we start growing, you know, one crop and then second crop and third crop. So we have to absolutely look after the biodiversity, which is a very important part of what Muslims should be. We should be looking after the earth as well, because that is a source, it's a library, if you like. It's a library of solutions. And we should also keep that in mind as well.
Jazakallah khair. It's a very interesting conversation. Mohammed Thompson, what are your thoughts on how Muslims can get back to saving planet Earth and feeding mankind in general? I mean, New Zealand's a good place to start from, right?
I was just going to say, New Zealand's probably one great big farm, you know, if you with some nice mountains in between. But I think there's a lot that we can learn from the prophets, alayhi salam, because most of them were farmers, you know, shepherds and things like that. So we need to get back to that sort of the back to the roots and go back to the natural. You know, some people were talking about, these were non-Muslim, talking about going back to the ancient or antique, I'm not sure of the exact word, like the strains of cows and things like that, the seeds, going back to those old historical type seeds. And I think there are some areas where they've got these in, like, you can buy some of these ancient type seeds and start utilizing them again, because this is what I think needs to be done, because ones nowadays have been genetically modified and things like that. A whole lot of things gone into them that now they're not the same. You know, like you were talking about before, Yusuf, about, you know, the supermarkets, they want the tomatoes to be one shape, one size, you know, this and that. But the problem with that is there's no taste in it. You know, like for us, after this lockdown, the first thing my wife and I wanted to do is go back to the markets. Yes, it's not organic, but it's fresh. You know, it doesn't look so good. It doesn't, you know, it's got a funny shape, but the taste is just unbelievable. You know, like to get the fresh fruit and the fresh greens and vegetables and things like that, just to eat that.
Do you think you think it's like a conspiracy from the Irish to make everything taste like potatoes? I mean that, because that's what it tastes like, right?
We'll blame the Irish.
Blame the Irish, but you know, I'm sure it's some other company. It's got an M and a B in it or something like that.
Yeah. I couldn't even spell the name, let alone pronounce it.
I was going to blame the Malaysian.
Yeah, well, that's got an M. That's got an M.
And also, Diana is saying, what about caged eggs? It's sourced from unethical farming. Unethical, it's not ethical. Is farming by and large ethical today? Who can answer that?
The farmer.
Go for it, guys.
In the context of New Zealand, where we are in terms of our dairy farming, I think we have to be the most natural of farmings, where the habitats and the display of the natural emotions of the cows are there. I mean, you know yourself, you know, our cows are free to really display, you know, their physiological being on the paddocks, and yet they're having a fresh paddocks every 12 hours after every milking. So they are not exposed to the, you know, the compactions of manure, and being subjected to, you know, to be put into a cage or a barn where it's quite, it's quite dirty at times, you know. And so our cows are very, very lucky, I believe. And that's reflected in the taste of the milk. Now we see campaign where there are campaign for, or in fact, I just had dinner with a brother here that we had a grass-fed beef, you know, and there is a difference between a grass-fed beef than grain-fed, and two reasons: not only environmentally friendlier, more sustainable, but also for the grain-fed, you are using a lot more resources to produce that 1 pound of beef. I mean, that's a start, I think, with regards to New Zealand, because you got to grow that grain, and then the grain's got to be harvested, and in the process, you know, you use energy and methanes are produced and all this greenhouse, and then you're using that grain to produce that 1 pound of beef. Whereas if you are using that in a most environmentally friendly way of growing grass, isn't that nature? Isn't at least more nature?
Yes, indeed. If I may just add to that, Brother Reza, I think that's a beautiful thing you said, and because what you're saying is basically animals should be eating their natural food. And in New Zealand is the most, you know, is least polluted of many places. But I think, you know, look what happens when you start deviating from this. So, for example, if you feed proteins or offal to herds, cows, and what happens is you have outbreaks such as BSE.
Yes.
Now, BSE is it's an amazing, I mean, something that I study. These are called prion diseases. It's a protein that misfolds. It changes its shape. And they started feeding cows here in the United Kingdom, France, and etc. this so that they can beef them up. And so this is almost like cannibalism for the cow itself. And once that misfolding happened, these prions, go into the brains of cows in particular, and sheep as well, and it misfolds and starts aggregating in the brain. So you start getting all these clumps in the brain, and hence they go mad. So the thing is, if we follow the deen, I think, you know, we would not be feeding these things to them.
Absolutely.
And not only that, this is you can transmit these as well. So this can go to a human being. DSC, all these CJD, all these. So this is an important point.
Maybe even Corona, right?
Well, Corona's a little bit different because what I spoke to you about was a protein. You know, you can heat that up and it still doesn't make a difference. It's not even living. Can you imagine that? It's something that you eat. It's not even living, these prions. And so it propagates. Even if you autoclave it, in other words, 121 degrees, you kind of. Corona is you know, when we talk about Corona, all of these viruses, all these viruses exist in nature. They are there, but they are contained within their own habitat. So bats would have it, but they won't transmit it between bats themselves. And it's occasionally when we as human beings start messing around with their habitats, whether they come out or whether we're eating them, that we're then exposed to them. And this is a natural process. It changes, and then we can catch that. So there's a species barrier that jumps, and it's because that we are perturbing these natural order already. And who knows, this may be a punishment for us, but this is not the first time this has happened. If you look back in history, look at the plague, all of these different sort of, I mean, in particular, the viruses, these are very, very, these things happen occasionally. And this is something that we have to have warnings. And I think this is a warning for us.
Allahu Akbar. Very true, my brother. I couldn't agree more. You see, follow the deen, because if you follow the deen of Islam, then we'll understand that, you know, these things where bloods are getting fed, blood and bone, and this is jalalah, you know, like, I mean, which is not permissible within Islam. And I probably want to sort of highlights the fact that you see what is it that makes us do something better, understanding the purpose of our creations, you know, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذْ قَالَ لِرَبِّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَائِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the malaika that I've created this, you know, the humankind as the Khalifa, the caretaker, the stewardship of the land. So I guess act like one. You know, we should act like those that are really being entrusted this beautiful place, this planet, be it England, New Zealand, wherever you may be. So we must act into that accordingly and responsibly. My thought.
Absolutely. And we've got Salwa, who's mentioned, I find good nutrition, halal and pure, brings good health, and with good health feeds into good energy, which reflects the quality of our living. I actually focus on foods from the earth for good health. I cling to fruits, vegetables, grains, nuts for my diet, with meats halal only, but do not eat meat very much. I stay away from artificial foods. I see the opposite of good nutrition, the opposite of good nutrition. And we need to be careful. Just because meat is labeled as halal doesn't mean to say it's going to be in tayyib and good and nutrition itself. So that's a beautiful saying that we've got. All the prophets were farmers, disciplined with rams and other animals. This taught them how to be the Nabi and the Rasul, disciplining mankind. Great statements as well coming through from our audience out there worldwide, alhamdulillah, and a wonderful discussion taking place. This isn't just a discussion, this is a forum, brothers and sisters, to try to get Muslims to start to think about change and implement change. It's not just us giving a series of lectures on this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, this is the Sunnah, and then you learn it and you don't implement it. This is the most detested form of way a man can adopt, is just talk about Islam and completely ignore it when it comes to practical application. Am I right?
Very right.
Who wants to respond to that?
Alhamdulillah, very right. And this is what we should be learning from this, because it's, you know, we've got some good scholars here in this, or experts in their field in this these sort of things. And I think people should take this, all of us, including myself, first, and start to implement some of these things. Grow some of the things in our backyard. That some simple, start off with some herbs, some greens. It's easy to do these sort of things. You don't need big area, and then just start growing these sort of things to help supplement whatever you're having now with these things, and then slowly get more where you can find some organic or at least fresh stuff that hasn't been, you know, sprayed and then imported from the other side of the world and things like that. Because just all that cost and transportation and fuel and things like that. And then for the produce to come all that distance, there must be something put in it. And then you put it on your table and it stays there for weeks and weeks and weeks. It's like it's been, injected with hormones, to preservatives in it, to keep it staying that way. When you see other ones which are fresh out of your garden, like I picked some oranges out of our garden the other day, and it's sort of after a couple of days of going limp and that, and I thought, oh, it's not like the ones you get from the supermarket, but these ones taste nicer, so they're fresh, they're not got preservatives in it. I think this is why now people are living longer as well. We're eating so much that they've got so much preservatives in it that it's keeping people longer, living longer, but I don't think they're healthier. They're not healthy, they're just existing. And I think it's just true. On all the preservatives in the foods, the meats, the breads, everything.
SubhanAllah, very good. And can we have some also, first of all, I'd like to say that, Reza, I do believe that you've got a co-worker in Dr. Farid. He needs to be invited to NZ as soon as the lockdown's over, not to spread coronavirus from the UK, like just mentioned here. Don't bring it, Dr. Farid, they said. But to bring some good technology, some good partnerships and working together with our mu'min believers that will come and spread goodness on earth, goodness in New Zealand, goodness in Manchester. We need some goodness in Manchester, Dr. Farid, as well, don't we?
Yes.
So, partnerships are going to be formed from this discussion. But what else can we do? What are the common layman in the street right now that's watching this all over the social media networks do, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, today, change their lives? Let's go through a few points.
I was going to say, it's what they not do. Not walk into those ones with the yellow arches and the other, all those fast food places. That's what they should not do.
You mean the mosque?
Yeah.
M for mosque.
M for mosque, yes.
The yellow arches,
So I think that's what we because after lockdown here, the queues out those sort of places, people it was like they were standing for hours, like as if they've never eaten in a life, just to get a quick takeaway, like something that's, they're probably all that time they're in lockdown, they're eating probably something reasonably healthy, and then they go out and blow it after that. It's just, it's strange. People are strange.
People are strange indeed.
I just want to add, you see, the competition, unless we are able to really promote, encourage and really make this a living testament of the halal and tayyiban, the concept of something that is permissible and pure, we see the opposite of this, something that is diametrically in opposite, like the veganism. But of course, as Muslims, this isn't the answer. So, I mean, to all my brothers and my sisters out there, what we're talking about here, we are not saying veganism or vegetarian, because in Islam, it's a concept of balance. Balance is what makes us Muslims, the middle ground, not very hot, not very cold. It's lukewarm. Once my beloved brother used to teach me, this, exactly that, so it's lukewarm. It's what we're looking for. So this is something that that we know. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing of Allah be upon him, that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam enjoyed the feet from lamb, from other kind of meat, yes. But the concept of imbalance is, I think, what we need to go. Because I'm worried sometimes when we talk the other end of the spectrum of this organic, and that is veganism. We've seen a few backlash in New Zealand, where we've got a few vegans storming the supermarkets and blocking all the beef, all the other meat products, and saying that everyone is enforced to go vegan. And this is also not correct, of course, but there's somewhere in the middle, there is a balance. Wallahu alam.
Finding a balance, that's a great way of putting it. And if there's no balance in spirituality and the purpose, like you've mentioned, Dr. Reza, if there's no balance in terms of finding a nice even playing field for brothers and sisters in humanity to live, and finding the purpose of living, then they will not be eating good, they will not be producing good, right? So
Yes.
I think this is what we need to be focusing on right now. Dr. Farid, what are your closing comments and thoughts about this situation we're in, and what can brothers and sisters do in actual fact?
I think one of the things is a psychological one. And this is really to teach the next generation. Teach your own children. Show them this is a seed. From this tukham, this seed, you produce this fruit. Because this is a concept that a lot of children now in the West doesn't even know. They say, well, if fruit comes from a packet, which comes from Tesco's, or this beef, oh yeah, it doesn't. This concept of where food comes from. If they need to absolutely physically, parents should allow them to have a patch, grow food. It gives patience as well. These are virtues. This is why the prophets did it. It gives them patience to nurture something. And this psychological thing is important because then you start belonging to the earth. It's a connection with you. And if we don't have that connection, whatever technologies we've had, the past is the past. But that connection needs to be done with our next generation. And then they will nurture and look after this because, we'll be long dead by then. We'll be fertilizers ourselves. So inshallah, this is why I think the next generation and generations after that, we need to absolutely give them a chance. And this is why I think things like what Brother Reza does, I'm sure, is bring schools into farms, give them seeds, let them grow things so that they understand these kind of things. So on that basis, I'll leave you. Jazakallah khair.
Barakallah feek. Barakallah feek, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept it and reward you all for your input in this fascinating discussion about food sustainability and Islamic thought, in terms of how Islamic thought can help the world understand their purpose, first of all, and to live better, halal, cleaner, more authentic, traditional lives. We need to go back to tradition, go back to the land. I'm, of course, from a farming background with 6 sustainable farms in my own Irish, heritage. And of course, I remember them eating directly from the land. So whatever they ate, they would just go and grab it in the morning. They just prepare it in the kitchen and they'd eat it, and that was it. There was no going to a third party individual, massive corporation who'd decided, divided, and bought up all of this product and then created it in some lab or whatever it is. No, it was from the land to the land. What went from the land went back to the land as well, and it created the next load of crops.
And I teach my children to drink the milk straight off the cows too. We want to go real authentic.
Real authentic. Yeah, I've heard that some of my Moroccan family has mentioned that before, that would be used. That would be a normal thing in the mountains there in Morocco as well. And that, of course, it's teaching the children, where is the food from? Have respect for that food. How long does it take that animal? How long does it take that animal to produce that which you are eating? Where does it come from? Be connected to the earth. We're going to sound like a load of 1960s peace and love guys, Dr. Farid, soon. But that's ultimately what Islam is about, isn't it? Islam is about bringing back which is normal, which is traditional, which is natural, which is organic. And why is it that organic has become something which is abnormal? That's the normal. Why is it? So brothers and sisters, start to think what you're eating. Don't think, oh, chicken £3, that's good, let me go and buy it. I mean, think about why it's £3. Why does it cost £3?
Yeah,
because it's going to hurt you. That's why. It's going to make you sick. It's going to make you vomit. You've got to think about, if you saw the way that animal was treated, none of us would buy it. None of us. Be connected to the source of the provision, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You see? If you're connected with the source of the provision, then you will start to think of the processes involved. That's what Islam is all about. It's practical. It's real. For those who are not yet Muslims, find out more about Islam. Go to voiceofislam.me. You can find out a lot more about why we're talking about these topics and why we're sick of the same old talking from the scholars, talking about big highfalutin Islamic thought and not being practical. This is why we're doing this source of, this forum. on a weekly basis. Twice a week, we're doing it actually on Friday night and Saturday morning in the UK. Of course, it's the other way around in New Zealand because you're at least 11 hours ahead of us. You're probably ahead of us on a lot of things, actually, including the coronavirus issue. Isn't that right,
we tend to
Dr. Farid?
export that.
We're one of our chief exports at the moment, by the sounds of things. Yes, no, so brothers and sisters, please keep watching the show. Share the video. You can share the video. It's going to be up there now on the Voice of Islam platform, on my platform, probably on Dr. Reza's platform as well, all over the place. Share it. Sharing is caring. And also, you get rewarded for it if there's any beneficial knowledge that we've spoken about today. And Allah knows best. Anything we've said which is beneficial, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward us. For anything we've said which is incorrect, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us of that. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward all of these wonderful guests, and see you on next week's program. No doubt, Dr. Farid, we're going to be seeing a lot more of you on the show.
Absolutely.
Dr. Reza, you've been on the show 3-4 times. Dr. Spock. No, I mean, sorry. No, that's the next one we're going to get on the show. Mohammed Thompson, of course, is a piece of furniture on the show. Alhamdulillah. He's been on there just as much as I have. May Allah bless you all and greatly, and see you on the show next week on Friday and Saturday. Watch out for the adverts to see what's going to be spoken about next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to all of you, and to all.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.